Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be a good day because A, I have an amazing guest, and two, I messed up the first podcast I did with her. We had some technology issues, more self-induced technology than anything else. But I've known this woman for probably 5 or 6 months now, and followed her on TikTok, LinkedIn. That's actually how I found her. The stories she was telling were so inspiring, and I saw the comments that people were making and the people that were following her and the support that she was getting. I'm going to have her tell her story here, but she's had some struggles, and now she's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which is amazing. And I've broken this up into a couple different segments. I want to hear kind of how her last year was, and then kind of take a little bit of a pivot, and then where she's going. But let me introduce Gail Justine. Gail, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate you having me.
I can't thank you enough for coming back after my failed attempt the first time. So thank you so much for doing this again. And I really, really appreciate your time. And it is a Saturday that we're doing this. So we've got through the work week. I'm just getting over COVID. So I know we've had to postpone and move this about 100 different times. So just briefly, tell me just a little bit about who you are and what you do in life.
Who I am and what I do in life. Wow. Okay. Well,
that's a loaded question, isn't it?
I know, but yeah, I'll give it a go here.
Yeah.
Basically, I have an operations background, so planning and execution is kind of my jam.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at seeing the big picture of things and executing in small palatable bites, and basically, shuffling down to the finish line. So, and I also do public speaking, and I've been leaning more into that.
Which is new for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, I've probably been speaking for many, many, many years, in fact. But in terms of sort of turning the focus onto that in a more professional capacity, I suppose, is definitely where I'm headed. My whole brand is empowerment across the board.
Yeah,
and
definitely noticeable on your LinkedIn page. That just the empowerment and the message that you send to everybody. And and I've mentioned it already once, but just the comments that people are making, they're so just inspired and motivated by you, and it's really kind of where you've come from. So why don't you, if you can, just give me kind of a walkthrough of what your last year has looked like?
Well, my last year was definitely probably one of the harder calendar years of my life.
Yep.
But basically, this past year, I had lost my job in August of 2024, and this past year wasn't just about looking for a job, it was about building leverage. I launched digital products, grew my stacks, built my LinkedIn presence, and doubled down on the visibility. It was training in a sense. It wasn't waiting. And 150,000 impressions in a single week taught me one thing. Don't hide when things are hard.
Yeah.
You lean into being seen. And that visibility became my foundation and not a byproduct.
Did you think it was going to take this long to find a new opportunity? I mean, when was that moment that you realized, wow, this is going to be a lot bigger journey than I thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are probably experiencing this, but in the past, I'd get traction relatively quickly. But this time it was like crickets. I had to 2, 3, 4x harder.
Yeah.
Loom videos, pitch decks, personalization on steroids. It felt like everything I had already accomplished wasn't enough, even though I was more seasoned than ever.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of had martial arts flashbacks. In fight camp, no one sits around waiting, or rather crying about how hard the fight's going to be. You train harder. You sharpen your focus, you get in your reps, and listen, no one denies how hard this looking for a job is, for sure, but the hardest part of your fight camp should actually be your training.
Exactly.
And the mantra I live by these days is, when you're fighting a gorilla, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when the gorilla's tired. And getting by shouldn't be an option.
Yeah.
You've never heard that before?
No.
Yeah, getting by shouldn't be an option if you can be exceptional. So
Yeah. Well, it's different times. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I would say in the past year and a half, I've seen something that I've not seen in the past. and it's kind of a perfect storm. We've got obviously a very turbulent market, which you walked into. Two, we've got technology that's creating just this onslaught of candidates because it's so much easier to apply to jobs. So 2-3 years ago, companies were seeing, maybe 200-300 applicants. Now an organization seeing 1,000 applicants is not unheard of at all. And that's all competition. And then, of course, you throw in the applicant tracking systems and how they're changing their parameters because of so many candidates are coming in. It's an unbelievable game. And if you don't understand the rules or even how to abide by those, then looking for an opportunity is extremely difficult. And one of the things that I recognized that you were doing, and you even said this in some of the posts that you put, I think you said, hey, if you and I are applying for the same job, you're not going to beat me. And then you laid out what you do above and beyond. And I just thought that was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
So during this time, how did you stay motivated? How did you say, a higher confidence? I talk to people all the time and they come in and, gosh, I've been out of work for a year. I'm completely lost. I don't know my direction. What kept you so, high strung and upbeat throughout that entire process?
I'm not necessarily sure I was, but I feel like for me, giving up wasn't really an option. I mean, pure survival lit the fire under me, and refusing the invisibility kept me burning.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was in a fight camp in what I call the summer of death. I lost people back to back, May, June, and July, and my fight was in August. And I remember my coach said to me, do you still want to do this? And I just looked at him and I said, as opposed to what else?
Yeah, no other option, huh?
Yeah, and it's like that's sort of how I've approached this chapter of my life. Like, what else am I going to do? Let the world, pass by me?
Yeah.
Like, no, the game might be rigged, but you learn the rules and then you bend them.
Yeah, I like that, and I say that a lot. So you were doing this on your own. Did you have anybody you followed? Did you have anybody that you spoke to that walked you through this process a little bit?
Not really. This was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of white knuckling. I was probably white knuckling this whole year. Over and above losing my job, I lost some people in my life as well, a lot of my support system. So that was part of the reason why it was such a really challenging year for me. It wasn't from a lack of trying, but most definitely this was probably a white knuckling year for me.
Well, and I know we're going to hear a little bit later here from you on where that's turned out. But, when people are in situations like yourself, which of course millions of people are, they tend to learn new things because you're trying to figure out what do I need to do to where organizations are going to accept my experience. So, what new skills, habits, perspectives did you learn in the past year or two?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say the biggest perspective shift is visibility is survival. The most qualified person does not get the job anymore. The most visible person does. And you can't be half visible any more than you can be half dead.
Yeah. Explain that to me. I mean, is that being on LinkedIn? Is that being engaged? Is that just being out and about and talking to people, networking? Is it all of that or some of that?
I feel like for me, it was kind of all of that.
Okay.
I am somebody that when I dive in, I'm like all or nothing. It's not like let's ease into it and let's try networking and then let's try LinkedIn and then let's just do it all. So I went to in-person networking events. I went, I planned content, tested it out, talked to as many people as possible. I did like hundreds and hundreds of outreach. So it wasn't just any one thing.
Okay.
It was talking to as many people as possible. And the nice part about that is I like networking.
Yeah.
I like talking to strangers just in my day-to-day life. So that wasn't really a challenge for me, but I suppose it was finding the routine and doing a whole bunch of everything because everyone also has an opinion, right? It's like if you optimize your profile, as an example, by, this person's standard who specializes in LinkedIn, another person who also specializes in LinkedIn might have a different perspective. So you're sort of like, what do I
Where
do?
do I go? And I know you've talked about that in some of your posts. Just everything's subjective, and I the same way I write a resume, and 100 different hiring authorities are going to have 100 different things to say. It's too long. It's too short. It's not enough. It's not. So you can't win in that. But just the fact that you're doing it is the key. That you're engaging, that you're putting yourself out there, and that's where so many people struggle. Just to be able to, just start to put some things out, even if you're just easing. But I love the way you do it, because I'm the same way. You're like, hey, I've got an idea. I'm not going to dilly-dally around. I'm going to put 100% in and just see what happens, because that's life.
Yeah, and it's like, in hindsight, I really didn't have anything to lose. And actually, prior to this experience, just even a couple of years ago, I sort of started this mentality that I was just going to start whatever at 40% ready.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many of us wait to, I'll wait until after this, or when I feel more ready, or when it's like, nah, if you're like 40% ready, just like dive in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, not only in the work life, but personal life. Hey, I'm ready to do the gym, but I'll do it next Monday, not this Monday. And it's just always on and on. So what was a silver lining that came about this year?
Ooh, just the caliber of people that I've met, CEOs, founders, executives who responded because I had the audacity to reach out directly and
That's awesome.
really unapologetically.
Yeah.
Networking at scale and just being visible gave me access to rooms that I didn't even necessarily know existed.
Yeah.
And the real silver lining has been the visibility itself.
Yeah.
Because visibility is currency. It's absolutely currency. And the more visible and connected you are, the more options you create.
Yeah. And right at the beginning there, you said, reaching out to CEOs and C-suite. I have all the time, and I work with hundreds of people at any given time, but they're like, I can't do that, or, I can't go behind this or do that, or send an email. Are you kidding? When you're looking for an opportunity, there are no rules. There are no rules whatsoever. And that's, again, one of those things where I think people just get stuck, where they apply to a job, they sit back and wait. And you're the kind of people that beat them, because you submit, then you find out who the hiring authority is, then you find out somebody there, then you find out who the CEO, and you're reaching out and touching, trying to get all these different angles into that position, whereas the average person applies, sits back and waits, and can't figure out why they're not getting any responses. So, yeah. Oh, did we freeze?
A few moments later, a little longer than a few minutes later.
Hey.
My power went out.
Oh, you know what? No worries. We're just going to pick up right where we left off. I figured something happened because you froze.
Yeah.
And no worries.
I just this is so funny. Like, of all the things, it's like, we're finally here. And it's like, oh my God.
You know what? I've had that happen to me before, but it was in a meeting, and but that's good. So.
Good gravy. Okay.
That's right. Well, let's do this. Let's pivot a little bit. And because one thing that I pick up in talking to not only my clients and such, but some of the things that they learned. And you kind of told me what some things you picked up, some of your silver linings. But one thing that comes from especially a little bit longer term of unemployment is people realizing their superpower. What really makes them tick. And do you have a superpower? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a few, but I would say one of the main ones that I have is that I see the whole system, the chessboard, not just the next move. And once I see it, I act decisively, quickly, not recklessly, but with intent. By the time most people are still in planning mode, I've iterated 3 to 5 times, and success loves speed. And because our time is the most expensive commodity, I treat it like luxury currency and spend it wisely.
Yeah. When did you figure that out? When did you? Was it this year that you figured out your superpower, or was it prior to being unemployed?
It was way prior, actually. I can remember I was an air cadet when I was a teenager, and I remember I think I was in university, and I kind of were up until that point I'd really been in contact with a lot of high achievers. And then once I got into the university space and I was on my own and everything like that, I encountered other people that weren't as high achieving.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, are there like people in the world that don't care or they don't try? And like I felt really old to, not that I was, but it's like I came to that realization like later. And it was sort of at that point in time, probably in my 20s, that I realized that I was like an executor, and seeing the whole system and breaking it down was something I was really good at, because up until that point, I had sort of been around people who either complemented that or really enhanced that or whatnot. And after that, it was like, oh, wow, okay. Not everyone is like this.
and the world, unfortunately, the world, I don't think it's getting better from the standpoint of people being like you and I. You know, the type A, the people that really go out and after. And I mean, it's a whole other podcast on why I think that is. But, you know, that only helps us. You know, that helps us because our competition is going down. So I've seen your resume. I've seen your background. I've followed your stories. You've got, amazing experience. Give me a success story. Give me a success story that you're incredibly proud of, that just maybe changes the way you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say at CSI several years ago, I scaled the quoting output 5x in my first 90 days. So not even just in any quarter, but the first 90 days I was there, and generated over 200,000 in recurring revenue. But it also wasn't just about the numbers. It was about building contracts that were 3 to 5 years long, as opposed to just doing them yearly over and over again, which meant capacity for new customers without burning out the team. And with a 90% close rate in my first quarter, it was like no excuses, no ramp up cushion. I walked in, saw the opportunity, and delivered. And that's the kind of execution I bring to every arena I step into.
That's perfect. Do you use, when you interview, do you bring up that story?
I mean, I typically do. I have a few of them kind of in my back pocket, but I feel like that was sort of one of just the particular time of my life, and how seamlessly I stepped into it and took it over, and the buy-in that I got, like that was sort of like a really great ROI for me, as well as just taking that ownership. So that was probably one of my more favorite stories for sure.
I like that. One of the things that I admire about you is just the hustle. You've got a plan A, you've got a plan B, you've got a plan C. And I know and we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but one of the things that you're starting now is kind of your plan B, but your plan A is still trying to find that full-time opportunity. And the roles that you're targeting now, what makes you an ideal fit that someone's not seeing on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile? What's that ideal fit, and how do you promote that to someone if you haven't spoken to them yet? That's the difficult question. But what are some of those ideal fits that we're not seeing on paper or on a screen?
That's a great question. And I feel like you and I have touched upon this in the past a little bit. But I would say what sets me apart is audacity and execution. Yeah. So in the workplace, I toe the line, right? A collaborative, strategic, adaptable, but on stage, you get me unfiltered, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the difference. And I mean, a company hires me for the results I deliver, and an audience listens to me because of the truth I tell. So it's bridging both worlds, systems at work and audacity on stage.
Yeah, and I love that. And we're going to talk about on stage here a little bit, because I've got a little bit of experience on that. I've done about 2,000 speaking engagements in my life, and absolutely love it. Getting back into it, I know you and I are going to collaborate on some things there. But the message that you share is absolutely amazing. And I touched on it a little bit, your audacity. How do you, and this is kind of off the cuff question, because I know we didn't talk about this, but how do you market that? You can't put really audacity all over your resume, and you really can't put audacity all over LinkedIn. And unfortunately, that's what people have to see first. So until we actually speak to somebody and they can actually hear your audacity and how excited you about an opportunity, can you think of any way to promote that outside of just simply saying it straight up on a resume, which is very difficult to do?
You're absolutely right about that. And I think that's sort of the struggle I'm in right now, in that I feel like just by being the audacious person that I am, that somehow, some way that's going to translate.
Yeah.
And that may or may not be true, but I feel as though doing the audacious things like pitching the CEO or, cutting to the front of the line if possible, or in the back door, sending the Loom video, sending the pitch deck. I feel like that's at least right now what I'm trying to do to sort of convey that audacity to people. But I feel like it doesn't take very long to speak with me to sort of sense that audacity.
Yeah.
You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No. You're exactly right. Because I think the very first time we had a conversation, I knew it immediately. And I said, I've got to get you on a podcast because not only do I want people to see, what it is that you bring to the table, but just your excitement, your audacity, your energy. And that's huge when it comes to getting an organization to want to be excited about you, because it's not only what's on that resume, it's the kind of the person that you bring to that role. So let's pivot again. Because I know a couple weeks ago we were talking about a speaking engagement that I just went to, and then I saw your ears perk up. I could hear it over the phone, and then I could just hear your excitement. And I know you're starting, and you've done it before, but I know you're starting to market yourself as a speaker. And there's nothing more exciting and liberating than getting on a stage and just telling your story. So what kind of stories are you going to share when you get on stage?
I feel like at its core, like I mentioned, like empowerment is my whole brand.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's audacity over permission.
Okay.
Too many people wait to be chosen. I mean, I'm guilty of that, but I stopped waiting and I started choosing myself, because this world is not one where your work quietly speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You need to be your loudest, fiercest advocate. You need teeth. Yeah. And visibility is survival, and audacity is power. If you want a seat at the table, stop waiting for the invitation and pull up your own chair. And I feel like that's something that really scares people, because, they think, oh, I don't want to be seen as pushy or overbearing or whatever. And I think on some level, I don't think it's about being overbearing. I think it's just about holding your own and just standing in your own power. Just because someone is, a CEO or something like that, that doesn't mean that person's any better than you. You have every right to be there as much as they do. So I think it's just about owning your own power and realizing that, why not you? Why not take the chance? Why,
I like what you just said, don't wait for the invitation to be at the table. I don't feel like, I think you're building the table. And creating the environment around there. And again, the things that you're doing, people just don't do anymore. They're not reaching out to the CEOs because they feel that they're going to be wasting their time. But you're right, they're exactly like us. There's no difference. And I can't tell you how many positive stories I've heard where somebody has done that, had an amazing conversation, and then when you're getting trickled down from the CEO down to the hiring authority or the recruiter, they're going to listen. They're not going to not pay attention to the CEO. So I like the fact that you use so many spokes in the wheel to get yourself out there, and that needs to be the norm. And unfortunately, so few people are doing that, and that's why I think so many people are struggling to get noticed out there, because they're just doing the minimum to get by. Which maybe worked 5 years ago. I think you could probably apply to 10, 15 jobs 5 years ago and get some notice. But now the average in the United States is you've got to apply to 97 positions before you get an interview. And people aren't realizing, and it's a numbers game, but it's also a quality game in what you're putting out. So again, one more question I want to ask you. And I think this is a neat one, because I ask this typically at a lot of my podcasts, is I guess if you could just do it all over again, if you knew where you were going to be now and you could start all over from day one, the day you got laid off out of your last position, what would you do different? And what would you tell our audience here on how to be successful?
Sorry, there was a bit of a pause there.
Yeah,
Rick.
yeah.
I got the
question. Did you hear that question?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
I did. And
let's do this. You ready? 3. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It sounds a little bit trite, but I feel like I would start sooner. start before you think you're ready, because you're way more ready than you think you are. And just speaking to my point about being, moving when you're 40% ready, stop waiting for the permission, stop waiting for someone else to choose you, and stop waiting to feel qualified. Swing for the fences, because the truth is, if I'm not playing to win big, I don't want to play at all anymore. You engineer readiness by committing to the next move.
Wow.
So step into the fire, not around it. Fail fast, adapt faster.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when you say something like that, that is exactly what I preach. If you're networking once you get laid off, you're way past the eight ball. You've missed it. You need to be networking and creating a brand for yourself throughout your entire experience in life. And if you're not, you're right. One day you can be sitting there all happy. The next day you're unemployed and you are starting from scratch. And it takes a long time to build, a positive network and a positive experience where people are going to notice you. And I think that's probably some of the best advice I've ever heard on my podcast is not waiting, doing it now. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily looking for a new job right now, but you can be building a network, you can be building a vision, you can be building excitement. So when people start to look and find you, your name keeps coming up because you've been engaged, you've been networking and so on. So that is absolutely amazing advice. So that, you nailed it. I don't even know what other questions to ask you. That was so perfect.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. But I feel like that's what it is at its core, It's like you see a lot of people kind of coming onto the LinkedIn bandwagon once they need something. And it's like, no, there's a lag time. Like there is a lag time.
And
if you're lucky,
it can be significant if you don't have a network.
Exactly. It's like, 3 months is probably a fast lag time in hindsight. Like you're probably talking 6, 8, 12 months.
Absolutely.
So it's like, start now.
Yeah, I love that, and I've actually written some posts and articles on that too. But I think that's something that just needs to be drilled into everybody's heads. That it's you got to start now, no matter what. If it's looking for a new opportunity, if it's branding yourself, if it's working out, if it's eating better, if it's health, whatever it may be, just start now. And I can't say that I do that for everything that I do, but if you can implement it, then it's huge. It's huge. So I can't thank you enough for hopping on today, Gail. This has been awesome. We're going to have another one of these talks, because one thing I want to do is I want to follow up with you in 3 to 6 months and see where you are, see where your story is. I definitely see some collaboration between you and I, because I do a lot of speaking, and I see with what you and I are talking about, it's very similar. And you and I both have, I think, the same energy and the same outlook for life and in helping people just in general. I'm going to put up on the screen here your LinkedIn page, because I want people to read what you say and how you say it, but more importantly, how people react to that, because the reactions are what got me interested in what you bring to the table and hearing your story. And this has been invaluable to me, because every time I do one of these podcasts, I learn more than you can imagine, and this has been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. You're gonna be someone, and you already are. But just the energy that you have now. Someone is gonna pick this up and just say, we need this person, we need this energy, we need this audacity, we need this excitement on our team. And I don't see very much time longer than you're just gonna have the most unbelievable opportunity in your hands. So it's gonna be perfect.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate you and this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you again for taking the time on this Saturday. I super appreciate it, and we'll have you back on the show here in a couple of months to hear where you are and your new success stories. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of the weekend, and thank you so much again.
Thanks so much.
Bye.